In this video, we will look at how to complete the Shapes A assignment. You'll be making this cartoon candle. Begin by zooming into the rectangular area by clicking on this zoom tool here. It's zoomed to fit page in window. The only thing I will be able to see is what's inside this rectangle. Next, we need to be sure that we have the fill and stroke panel open. Mine is already open over here. If you do not see the fill and stroke panel, go to Object and then select Fill and Stroke. The first thing that we're going to do is use our rectangle tool found here on the left-hand side, and we are going to pull out a rectangle for the shape or body of our candle and make that a reasonable size. Now notice that I can, if I select this or use the edit tool here, I can only make it larger and smaller. I can't adjust it. We want to be able to adjust these sides. To make these adjustments, go to Edit Paths by Nodes, and then for a shape, you must convert selected object to path in order to do that. Click on this figure 8 button here, and now you'll see these gray rectangles that allow me to change this in any way. So I'm going to begin by double-clicking on the bottom and pulling that out. Notice it's pointed. I want to make that smooth and round. So I go up here to the Smooth Node tool. Now you can see that I have handles. These handles will make the curve larger and smaller. And I can move this curve around until I get something that looks reasonably curved. I'm going to do the same thing at the top and to create sort of a melted wax effect here. The next step is to create the melted wax that goes along the front. For this, I'm going to use the Bezier Curve tool. Bezier Curve tool is this tool right here. It looks like a blue pen and it shows a node there. I'm going to click, and I'm not going to worry about it being round yet because I'm going to change that in a minute. So now I've created this path. I'm going to click Edit Paths by Nodes, and you can see each of the nodes here. I'm going to hold down the Shift key and select each one of those nodes because we're going to make all of them curved at the same time. Go to Smooth, and now I have this kind of bizarre arrangement here where I can adjust these handles to create a smooth shape to my melted wax. So I'm going to speed this up while I work on creating my melted wax. If you need to add a node, just double click on the line. If you want to delete a node, you can click on it and hit delete. Okay, once I have this drawn, now I'm going to fill this with the same color as my candle. To fill that color, I am going to go over to my Fill and Stroke panel. First I have to select it. Select it, go to Fill and Stroke. Notice that the X is hit here. So I'm going to need to hit this Fill button here, and notice that it defaulted to that color. If I want to change my candle color, I can select it and I can use this panel along the bottom to pick a color that I like, or I can use the wheel here and move this around to change the color. I think I'm going to use some of the palettes down below. Let's select a light yellow for our candle, and then I can do the same thing here. If I take that eyedropper tool and click on that, it fills it into the same color. Now we're going to copy this piece here in order to make the shadow behind it. So I'm going to use Control-C, Control-V to create a second piece. Now I want the second piece to be darker, and I'm going to put it behind. All right, so I'm going to select that one that I just drew, and I can just choose my wheel here to make a slightly darker color. All right, now notice that it's in front of the other one. I want to move it to the back, so I'm going to use these arrange tools here. So I'm going to click this one that, I'm going to click this one that will lower it one level. Notice how it's moved behind. Now I'm not going to be able to see it because they're identical, so I'm going to click on this front one and select it and make it a little bit smaller so that I can see the area beneath. If it snaps back and forth like that and acts all glitchy, it's due to these node tools over here. It's snapping to different levels. You want to shut that off. All right, so let's do that. Now, if it doesn't quite match what I want, I'm going to select the one back here. I'm going to do edit paths by nodes. I can move these nodes around again until they kind of fit and look like what I want. Once that's done, I'm going to get rid of the lines. So to select both of those pieces, I can use my selection arrow, click on the top one, hold down the shift key, and then click on the second one. And you can see that both of these are selected. Now go to the stroke paint tab over here and hit X, and that will make those disappear. Our next step is to create an elliptical shape in the center that's the melted wax. So go to the ellipse, pull that out. Mine is now the shape, the color of the shadow, which is great. Yours may not be. You can use the eyedropper tool to pick that. And I'm going to go to Edit Paths by Nodes, Convert Shape to Path, so that I can manipulate this and make it not a perfect angle. If it does things like that, just pull that back in again. Let's fit this in up here. It needs to be a little bit smaller. If I want to adjust this, I can pull this up. I also want to make this go behind the wax. And so once I've got it to the shape I want, I'm going to select it and move it back a level. Now I'm going to add the little drips along the sides. I'm going to use the ellipse for that. Now when I pull this out, the ellipse is the color of my shadow, not a problem. I can go to Fill, pick my eyedropper, and just click my candle. I want that to rotate so that I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. If I click it again, we get these rotation arrows so that it'll look a little more like drips along the sides. I'm going to draw out another one and do the same thing on the other side. Select, click, and rotate. Click it again if I want to change that size. Make it where it looks a little like a drip. You don't want it to stick out too far. Now I'm going to select the candle back and hold down the Shift key and select each of these. And I'm going to go to Path and Union. So now those have been joined together as one piece. I'm doing that because I'm now going to use that to copy and create a shadow around it. So I'm going to do Control C, Control V, use my eyedropper tool to select the shadow, and I'm going to make this just a little bit larger so that it will show around my candle, and I'm going to move it to the back using this one here that moves it straight to the back. I also want to have a shape in the center, so I'm going to make an oval here that's my shadow. I'm going to make another oval and color it the color of my candle. And then when I move that and place that over the top, it creates kind of a shadow like there's a drip on the front side. This looks like it needs to be a little bit bigger. It's always a series of adjustments. Okay, now let's add some highlights on the wax. So we're going to use the Bezier curve tool for the highlights on the lower part. We're just going to kind of make crescent shape pieces. Don't worry about the lines right now. We're going to get rid of those. All right, now we're going to select each of those. Click on the line, select, select, and select. We are going to fill those with white. I can select that at the bottom, and I'm going to go to stroke paint and get rid of the lines. So now I have some highlights there. Let's do the same thing up here on the top. You can do this by cutting and pasting from your original shape. I think it might be easier just to go ahead and draw. Okay, so there's the main part of our candle. Let's make a wick. There's a couple ways to make a wick. One way is to use the Ellipse tool. It's not going to have a color right now. Let me put a dark color in there so that you can see it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull another ellipse over the top, and I'm going to color this one a different color. Any color will do. And I'm going to move it over this until you can just see part of this black crescent showing here. And if I select both of those by holding down Shift and select both, and then go to Path and then Difference, it cuts away that red part. I can reduce the size of this and use this as the wick for my candle. You could also draw this with the Bezier curve tool. All right, so there's pretty much our completed candle. We don't have a flame on it yet. Let's move on to the candle holder itself. For the candle holder, we're going to start out with an ellipse. Don't worry about the color right now. Then we're going to take and draw out a rectangle over the top of that ellipse and cut it in half. You can see where these marks are. You can see exactly the half. Hold down the Shift key and select both. Go to Path and Difference and get a half size here. Now, for the back part, we're going to draw another ellipse, and this is going to be the interior part of our candle holder. Let's go ahead and make that a color, and we'll change the front color too in just a minute. Make that kind of fit right on top so it looks like you've cut a circle in half. Now what we're going to do is we're going to select each of these. We're going to select this one, and we're going to select the lower one. We're going to copy both of those together, so Control C, Control V. And now we've got the bottom one is selected. Okay, we're going to go to Path and Difference, and now we've cut out this little crescent. And we're going to set it to the side because we're going to use that in just a minute. We're going to make an interior piece. Oops, didn't mean to change that, but it doesn't really matter. We're going to change that color and make an interior ellipse here. That's going to be kind of like the lower dish part of our inside of our candlestick. It's going to go there, but we want to cut that away, and this is where this crescent comes in. We're going to move this over here. We're going to place this crescent over the top of it. Hold down the Shift key, select both, go to Path and Difference. Oops, this is what happens when you have them out of order. We can undo. We're going to need to select this one and move it to the back. If we don't have this one in the back, it's not going to work. So now let's try this again. Select, Select, Path, Difference. And there's our cut piece. So let's take and move that. Oop, we've got to move it up now. Move that one up a layer and move it in place here. So now we have kind of a three-dimensional look to the inside of our candlestick. Let's go ahead and group some things so that we can put these two together. First, I'm going to use my selection arrow. I'm going to draw a rectangle out completely around the candle. Notice it's selected everything. I'm going to go to Object and Group, and that will allow me to resize everything at once. I'm going to do the same thing for my candlestick here, candle holder, Object Group. And I'm going to move all of these together, and I can also move this to the back so that my candle will sit on the inside. All right, the next thing I need to do is create the loop for the candle holder here. So I'm going to pull an ellipse out. I'm going to make another ellipse. Let's make another ellipse, but we're going to make it yellow. Doesn't matter. This is the part that's going to be cut away. We'll have to make it a little smaller. All right, so there's the middle part. Hold down the Shift key, select both, go to Path and do Exclusion. And that cuts out a circle there so that you can have the ring for the candle holder. We can do Control C, Control V, and maybe change the color of that. Make it just a little larger. Move that over here. And then that'll allow us to have kind of a little three-dimensional effect. You can also add other pieces that could be reflections along the bottom using these pieces to cut but this is the basic format of your candle holder. Feel free to add more pieces to make it more detailed as you want to. Now let's pull out this entire thing, and we're going to group all of this together. We can always ungroup these if we want to. We're going to group this as a whole so we can move the whole thing down. And now we're going to make the flame. The flame we can draw with the Bezier curve tool. We're just going to draw a flame-like shape. And then I'm going to fill that with red. And we're going to Control-C, copy, and Control-V, paste. Let's change this one to orange and make it smaller. And that one will overlap on top of that one. And then let's Control-C, Control-V, and we'll color this one yellow and make this one a little bit smaller and put that one on top. We'll select all of them by drawing out a rectangle this way. Oop, I don't think it got the back one. Hold Shift and hit it, okay? Now let's get rid of that line. We can also blur this a little bit together so maybe it'll look a little more flame-like. And if we group this, we can then move it to the back, and that way the wick will show through it. And we maybe make it smaller, I don't know. And there you have your basic candle. This is just a guideline. Please experiment with the tools and make the candle your own. Enjoy your shape project. Bye.